All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Coffee and Cartridges. Today we're going to talk about the 243 Winchester. Stay tuned. All right, so I put a poll on YouTube today, and it's just getting started. There's only 53 votes, but it is the 243 Winchester a good choice for deer hunting? And that's regarding whitetail and mule deer. 55% said yes, definitely. 2% said no, it's not enough for deer. And 43% said it's acceptable, but not ideal. I've been thinking a lot about the 243. It's very popular. Why is this so popular? So I live here in Missouri, and recently I've just been talking to coworkers and friends and family and kind of asking them what their favorite cartridge is for deer hunting, or the one they've used the most, and I just keep hearing 243, 243, 243. And so it kind of inspired me to do this video. So to answer that question, why is the 243 so popular, we just need to kind of talk about it and give a few examples, and I'm just going to share a few stories. So the thing that got me started on this in the first place, I was talking to a coworker who was showing me multiple photographs of really nice bucks, whitetail bucks that he's killed here in Missouri. I mean, numerous. Now he does bow hunt as well, so he has killed some of those with a bow, but the majority of them I believe he killed with a rifle, and it was definitely a 243 that he's been using. These were very nice bucks, especially for this area. He's been using that 90 to 100 grain bullet, and he's told me he kills them out to 400 yards. He knows right where that bullet's going to drop. He's practiced enough. He's, just got enough experience that he knows if it's at 400 yards, he aims right here, it'll drop right in the bread basket, and they don't go that far. And he's killed many doing that. I was also impressed to hear the rifle that he uses. I believe it was an ATR 100, but I could be saying that wrong. It was definitely a Mossberg. I believe it was the first Mossberg centerfire rifle that they ever designed. I remember the rifle 10, 15 years ago is when it came out. They moved on to like the 4x4, now the Patriot, but the original one I think was the ATR 100. And he got that when he was a very young teenager, and he put a $50 scope on it, and that's still the rifle he's using today. Now he does have pretty nice bows. He has other rifles as well that are much nicer and nicer scopes, but he just continues to have good luck with that rifle. And so it's just pretty cool to see these giant, in my opinion, giant whitetail bucks he's killed with pretty cheap rifle, cheap scope, and some would call it underpowered cartridge. The 243 is a very interesting cartridge to me. You could consider it to be overrated, and you could also consider it to be underrated. If you ask me which cartridge was designed better, a 243 or a 6mm Creedmoor, I would lean toward the 6mm Creedmoor. If you were to ask me what would have the best performance, 243 or 6mm Remington, based on the potential of the cartridge, I'd have to go with the 6mm Remington. Just has a little bit more room for case capacity. But yet the 243 has always been the most popular 6mm cartridge. Now if you're talking about long range target shooting, there's the 6 GT and the 6 Dasher and the 6 BR, and there's some other ones that have become more popular than the 243. However, there have been people used a 243 in long range target shooting and done really well. But the 243 doesn't ever seem to me to be the best on paper, and therefore maybe it's overrated. However, looking at my own experience, I remember back when I just thought it was not a good cartridge, and I've just learned to not only like it and appreciate it, but actually like it a lot. It's one of my favorite cartridges because it's not bad. It's not a woman's cartridge or a youth cartridge. It's a good cartridge, period. And I've just begun to like it more and more over the years. And in that regard, it's underrated. I mean, those people like the one I was talking about from work that know how to shoot it and have used it for a long time have really had success. And it can be a great dual purpose cartridge between varmints, deer, potentially even bigger. It is going to have its limitations, of course, but it's really a well-made cartridge, and it really is not bad in anything. It's very accurate at long range. It's a great varmint round, it's a great deer round. It just really has the total package. So in that regard, it's a pretty underrated cartridge. My personal experience with the 243 is I bought a Savage Axis a few years ago, shot some 100 grain power points out of it. And then more recently, I have done some hand loading. I've come up with a 90 grain Nosler E-tip and a 95 grain Sierra Match tip. And I've really come to like the cartridge. I've killed 3 white-tailed deer with the cartridge. One, I shot it right in the breadbasket, right in the heart, and it went about 5 feet and dropped and never moved again. It was dead. It was a great shot. The other 2 did run off. One, flipped and flopped and staggered and ran and tumbled down a hill and died a much slower death than it should have because I made a bad shot. Now, was that the cartridge's fault? No, that was my fault. Had I made that same shot with a 30-06, it probably would have done the same thing. And then the third deer I killed was a really bad shot. And I feel, even to this day, I feel bad that it went the way it did. I had to track it a long way. When I finally caught up to it, it was still alive, standing there, really just able to stand there and not do much else. I realized I gut shot it, and I had, lobbed a few more bullets at it as it was running away, trying to put it out of its misery. And then when I finally found it and got to it, I had no more bullets left and I couldn't kill it. I basically just had to depart, let it die in peace, and come back. But it was not a good experience and I felt bad. But once again, not the cartridge's fault. It was a bad shot on my part. And by the way, there was 2 deer right next to each other. I was standing at the edge of a field with no rest, and one was the gut shot, one was the one that dropped within 5 feet. So that should tell you that had I made a good shot on both deer, I would have had the same result. So when I made a good shot, the 243 performed very well for me, and when I didn't, of course, it didn't turn out so well. Now some people might say, well, if that was a 300 Winchester Magnum, the extra velocity and the hydrostatic shock might have done more damage inside and perhaps killed it sooner, and that is possible, for sure. But if you don't make a good shot, it really doesn't matter. Even if you're using the 4570, it's gonna run off, and it's not gonna die in the ethical, quick way you would intend for. I had a person comment on my post, Ben Long. He said, when I got my 243, it wasn't legal for deer, so it was just a varmint gun. Now that it's legal, I've used it every year and haven't lost a deer to it yet. But then Patrick Gallagher said, over the many years at our deer camp, I've seen more deer wounded with the 243 than any other caliber. The 270 Winchester is a close second. This is from my 40+ seasons, and I'm not a big fan of either caliber for deer. So one has had great experience, one has not. Patrick, it could be that the 270 and the 243 are extremely popular and have been used maybe more than other cartridges, and that would affect why there's so many deer have been ran away, just because that's a caliber or cartridge used a lot for deer. Or I'd like to know, if you ever watched this video, were the shots good shots or were they bad shots? I'm sure there was a mixture, but I'd like to know that. But to answer the question of the video, why is the 243 so popular? More than likely is its low recoil. So a lot of people, when they're young, are their first deer rifle, especially in places like Missouri. Now, you live in Alaska, you live in the West, it might not be the case. But here in Missouri, the 30-30 and the 243 are probably the most common cartridges used for whitetail deer hunting. 270, 30-06, 7 mag are also very popular. But especially for young people, the 243 is very popular. And if you think about it, if the majority of young hunters, in 12 to 16 years old, start out with a 243, they're gonna have a sentimental attachment to it. They're gonna have nostalgia for it. It's probably gonna be the rifle they killed their first deer with. And also, if they've had success, why move away from that success? So if they've killed multiple deer with the 243 and they had no issues, even though they get bigger, stronger, more experienced, why get away, move away from something that's working? So I think that's the number one reason that it's so popular, is because of the low recoil. People think of it as a woman's cartridge or a youth cartridge, and therefore we give it to young hunters and they become attached to it and they continue to use it throughout their life. But here's the bottom line. If the cartridge works, the cartridge works. You really can't argue with those stories from experience, like the guy that I work with who showed me buck after buck after buck, taken with the 243 over and over again between 50 and 400 yards. The point is using a good bullet, the right bullet, good bullet construction, and making the proper shot. And making the proper shot comes down to practicing, knowing at what range your bullet's going to drop, how much energy and velocity does it still contain at that range. And if you've practiced with your rifle and you make the right shot, a 243 can be perfect. I've heard this from many guides out in the West and different places, that anytime a client shows up with a brand new rifle, brand new cartridge, with a $2,000 scope on it, they always kind of have a dread feeling, because they know they haven't had enough time to practice and get good with that rifle. Doesn't mean the hunt won't be successful, but there's just kind of a dread there. But when they see a guy show up and pull a 30-06 or something out of his truck that looks all beat up, they have, more confidence that that hunter has practiced and used that rifle again and again and again. So similar to my buddy at work who's used that cheap Mossberg with that $50 scope and killed nice bucks, he knows what it's going to do. I have a cousin who's killed many deer. I'm going to say 50, 60 legal deer, and all with a 30-30. The farthest shot probably was 150 yards, maybe a little bit longer. But he's generally had short shots, and he's had tremendous success with that 30-30 with just like Remington core locks, 150 grain, cheap Remington core locks. But time and time and time and time again, he has success, and he doesn't have to go track those deer very far. Well, I've said it many times on the channel, my preferred perfect deer hunting cartridge for this type of topography is a 308. I think it's just right. But I also love a 243. And of course, another reason that the 243 is so popular is availability. Just like the 308 or the 270, 30-06, it's very popular. You're gonna find it. It's not gonna be hard to find. I mean, the last few years, it's been tough to find a lot of stuff, but generally speaking, 243 is always on the shelf at every Walmart or every little pawn shop or sporting goods store, and you can find it. So that's another reason, of course, it's popular. And then the last reason I'll throw out there that the 243 is so popular is because it's good. You can market something and get a lot of initial success just based on marketing and not really performance. But over time, people are going to realize your product's not so good. It happens all the time in business. But the 243 has been going on a long time, since the 50s, and it's still just as popular as ever. That tells you it's a good cartridge. So why is it so popular? Because it's great, because it does a great job. Now, am I recommending you shoot a moose at 500 yards with the 243? I'm not. I don't think that's the right call. Could it kill a moose at that range? It's possible. I don't think it's the right call. I would recommend against that. But a 243 is a great deer cartridge. It might not be my personal ideal pick for a whitetail deer, but it is definitely not only capable, I think it does a good job at it. Do you have experience with the 243? I know I made a review on the 243 a year ago or so, and people from Australia and New Zealand commented. It's very popular over there. What's your experience with the 243? Good or bad? Maybe you're like Patrick that says, look, I've just seen a lot of animals run away and not and we have to track them. So maybe you've got bad experience. That's okay. But if you have experience, please leave it in the comments. Like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. More videos like this coming up. Check the description. There's a few links in there for other stuff I got going on that I think you might like. And hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and hope you have a great day. And until next time, take care.